In this video, I want to show you a tweak that I made to my forehand this week that I feel has given me a real breakthrough in terms of the amount of power and spin that I've been able to generate. But the cool thing was, I also felt like it was more consistent. So I want to break it down for you. Now, I'm naturally a right-handed player, but unfortunately, I injured myself in a mountain bike crash, and now I'm relearning to play left-handed. I'm trying to become the best player that I can, and obviously one of the things that I want to do is develop my forehand into a weapon. It's been progressing slowly over time. I got it to a point where it's kind of reasonably consistent, and now I'm trying to add layers to it so that I can use it as a real weapon to dominate opponents. So hopefully you find this video helpful. If you do, it'd be awesome if you could give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel before, it's much appreciated if you could do that as well. So we're going to look at my forehand from a few different angles first, and while we do that, I want to explain a really important concept about improving your forehand, because there's a lot of content online that makes out that it's really easy, and if you just tweak this or tweak that, you'll suddenly have high level strokes, and that's really not the way it works. It's absolutely vital to understand that it's a process. So what I'm doing now is a process that's taken me 3 years of ironing out creases, of working out what the underlying problem with my stroke was and addressing that until it was no longer a problem, and then moving on to the next thing and doing that gradually over time until I got to the point where I'm at now, where I'm making subtle tweaks to really try and get more power and spin. And this is exactly what you need to do with your technique. You need to work out where things are going wrong at the moment, and you need to work on fixing that underlying problem. So it might be incorporating some of what I'm describing here in the things that I'm working on, or what you need to work on might be completely different. Because for the first 2.5 years of developing my stroke, I was focusing almost exclusively on the preparation, on trying to get a good unit turn and setting up in the right position. And to an extent, I'm still focusing on that, because one of the tweaks that I'm going to explain in a moment was kind of a change in the way that I was thinking about doing my unit turn. Before we get to the next bit, I want to let you know about a free class that I've created for you that lays out the exact steps that I've used to become a 4.5 player with my left hand, and explains how you can use the same process to dramatically improve your game. So I'll place a link to that free class down in the description. So the video on the right is the latest video. The video on the left is a video from last week. Now, I've made 2 tweaks this week. The first one is kind of a continuation of the process that I've been working on for a while. I'm always focusing on getting as good a quality preparation as I can. So really loading my back or outside leg. So thinking about loading this leg so that I can then drive through it to initiate the swing. So I'm always working on that, and I'm always working to improve the quality of my unit turn. Now, obviously the shot that I'm hitting is slightly different, so we have to factor that in. But what I've really tried to do this time around is get a much greater upper body rotation and a bit more stretch in my chest. So if you look at the position that I'm here on the right hand side and compare that to the video that's on the left hand side, you'll see that it's slightly different. Now, I wasn't intentionally doing this, but the end result is that my arm, my elbow has come further away from my side on the most recent video. So I guess unintentionally, this is moving slightly more towards what they class as a next-gen style forehand. Now, that wasn't my intent. I was just really thinking about getting as much upper body rotation as I could. But then when I watched it back, it's clearly kind of moving and trending towards the next-gen style. So that is the first thing that changed, just really trying to get that upper body unit turn maximized, trying to get as much stretch in my chest as I can here, which has involved me pulling the elbow further away from my side, and then that's allowed me to kind of create more of a whip-like effect. So that was the first thing, but then there is a second piece to it that's been really important. The next tweak that I made was kind of a subtle tweak in terms of the way that I think about timing. Now, timing is one of the most important parts of the stroke because it's what allows you to create the racket head speed. There's the visual side of it, so you starting your swing at the right time relative to the flight of the ball, but then there's also the timing and the sequencing of using your kinetic chain. And that was kind of where I made a slight tweak. Normally, I'm thinking about driving through my back hip to initiate the swing and then creating the racket lag as more of a natural process. But this time I switched that round a little bit and I thought about creating an intentional racket lag. So after doing my preparation, getting that unit turn, I very intentionally and deliberately did this. So I very intentionally and deliberately supinated my forearm and externally rotated my shoulder to create the racket lag, and I thought about doing that just prior to firing with my hip. And the net result was way more whip, way more power, way more racket head speed, but without sacrificing consistency. Like I said, I felt like it actually increased my level of consistency. So it was just one subtle change, just kind of thinking about just externally rotating and supinating, basically falsely or intentionally creating a racket drop. And that seemed to really help my timing, so that then I was able to get much more whip and racket head speed through to contact. Okay, so if we now go in and we'll take a look at those two videos again. This is the video from last week. I'm driving through the hip and creating the racket lag as more of a natural process. And in the newer video, I'm being more intentional about it. So you should be able to see that the racket leg starts a little bit sooner. So I'm in position, and before I've really driven through that leg, I've started to create the racket lag, and that's allowed me to get much more whip on the ball. So it was a subtle thing, but the result was massive. I don't think I've ever got as much kind of power and bite into my shots before. Like the way the ball reacted off the court was pretty exciting for me. I couldn't even do that with my right hand. So a subtle change that's made a big difference. But now, obviously, I've got to go away. I've got to remember what I did, remember what I thought about, and do a lot of different repetitions until this becomes more of a natural process. Because obviously, when I'm playing a match, I don't want to be thinking about creating racket lag. I need to have done enough repetitions to make it a habit. So as you can see, there were subtle tweaks, but the results for me were very big. And as I've just said, now I've got to go away and I've got to do a lot of repetitions to turn those tweaks into habits. Because once those tweaks become habits, then I'll be able to use it in a match situation. And this is the process that I use to kind of work and improve all of my strokes, and it's a process that you can use as well. Now, something else that I do to improve my strokes and what's allowed me to get to this point with my left hand is doing brain-based training to improve my eye to hand and my eye to foot coordination. Because yes, you need to understand technique, you need to practice in the right way, but ultimately the way that you play tennis comes down to how skillful you are. So if you really want to become a better tennis player, you want high quality practice, but I also recommend using brain-based training to improve your hand-to-eye coordination. If you'd like to learn how to do that, I explain the process within that class that I mentioned earlier. So the class talks about in detail how to structure your practice and how to analyze your strokes and how to use brain-based training to become more skillful. So I'll place a link to it in the description so you can watch that if you would like to. If you have any questions about what I've gone through today, leave them down in the comment section and I'll get back as quick as I can. Otherwise, thanks for watching and I'll catch you next time.